makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Kathy KrulManor. She is an executive leadership coach, advisor, and founder of KKM Leadership. Good morning, Kathy. I am excited to have this conversation with you. You are a certified executive coach, strategic advisor, and coach to senior leaders in organization. Do you mind if I ask what led you to starting KKM Leadership?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So it's a bit of a long story, but I worked in human resources from the beginning of my career. I actually started with a kinesiology degree, and I soon realized in my third year of university that I absolutely loved business and human resources was the right path for me. So I was a human resource professional. Back in the day, we called ourselves generalists, and I worked for a number of different companies. And then I ended up working in professional services. So I did a year at Andersen, so it used to be called Arthur Andersen. And then a couple of years later, I ended up being recruited into Deloitte by my former leader from Andersen, who I am still very close with today. We meet on a very regular basis. He is essentially my mentor. So when I joined Deloitte, I just found this world that I absolutely loved. So I was providing talent advisory support to essentially consultants. They're a professional services firm. They provide a lot of different services, but they're all consultants. And I just really resonated with that mindset and that drive and the work that they were doing and just the deep thinking and the creativity and innovation. So I went through the journey with Deloitte. I worked in a more traditional HR role for a couple of years. And then I moved into the global talent strategy space with one of our global businesses. And I did that for about 8-9 years. And I was with Deloitte for 14. So when I started doing that work, it was a big challenge for me. It really stretched me to, I guess, flex those consulting muscles that I hadn't really been flexing before. So I was working out my brain and those skills and capabilities that I just hadn't before. So I worked in the space of a lot around diversity and inclusion, particularly women in leadership. I worked in global mobility, so kind of internal mobility, but cross-border mobility. So strategies around that, performance management, both for our internal talent as well as for our senior partners. So it was just, and global sourcing. There was just a wide range of activities that I was involved in, and I was building that strategy, leading that strategy, and it was really exciting and difficult and wonderful all at the same time. And so, from that, at some point, I realized I didn't want to work for Deloitte for the rest of my life. I wanted to do something more and different. I loved Deloitte. I mean, I was there 14 years. I ended up working for the global consulting practice as well. It was phenomenal. And they're actually now one of my clients, but we can talk about that later. So I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing, probably from the time that my husband and I moved from Toronto to San Diego. So I knew I wanted to do something different and do my own thing. I just didn't know when, how, or what. Wow. So a few years later, COVID hits. Things had changed in the business. I knew what I wanted to do. And so I just ripped off that Band-Aid and I started KKM Leadership. It was crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. But it was time. It was time to do it. I started with executive coaching. And then moved more into the talent advisory kind of human capital consulting space as well. So I'm doing both now.
Okay. So between the two, which one you think that leaders need the most?
Honestly, I think they need both. But if I had to pick one, I would say the coaching. The executive coaching is it's critical because as a human capital consultant, I can work with them and implement strategies. I can, help them to think a little bit differently and come up with a program or an initiative and launch that alongside of them in the organization. But it's the business leaders that need to be driving all of that change themselves. I mean, I can't do that for them. So if you have an initiative and you don't have leaders that are on it, they're not self-aware, they don't know where they're blocking progress, or they're just some of their behaviors might not be aligned to the culture of the organization, not intentionally, just unintentional, subconscious bias, whatever it is, or just, who they are and what they've learned over the
Right.
years, that holds them back. And so I love to be able to work with senior leaders, have those conversations in conjunction with those human capital solutions. That is the best. That is the best way forward in my professional opinion.
I never seen anyone mix these two together like that, you know? It's usually just the coaching part of the other one. It's never like a mix. So which is kind
Yeah,
of different.
it is, and uh, I feel as though that is where my soul belongs. I feel like that's the work I should be doing.
So do you work with both individual and organizations?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So I have had individual coaching clients who have reached out to say, I could use some help with whatever it is that they're trying to develop in. But I also work with organizations where they bring me in as part of their executive coaching team and give me internal clients that I can work with. So from a coaching perspective. But of course, when I'm doing HR or human capital consulting, it's always with an organization.
But you also provide group coaching and one-on-one coaching?
Good question. I haven't done a lot of group coaching, and it's not because I don't want to. It just hasn't happened. Uh, you know, it's a really good question. I think there is opportunity to do that, but I just haven't done it. But it's certainly something that I have done in the past in my previous roles, but not with KKM.
But do you think that between group coaching and one-on-one, which one do you feel like that's more effective?
I think it all depends on the situation. I know that's a really HR answer, but it really does depend on the situation. If there's a senior leader and they have specific needs, one-on-one is really the best. If there's excuse me, if there are perhaps a group of senior managers who are all working together and we're trying to enhance their collaboration and their trust and their relationships with one another, then group coaching is phenomenal. You can do strengths. So I'm going to have to go back on that. I did do some I didn't call it coaching, it was more facilitation. So it was with an executive leadership team, and it was exactly what I'm describing. Understanding one another's strengths, what their development areas are, where they play really well, how they can complement one another, gaining self-awareness, gaining awareness of one another. And I did that with an executive leadership team. So that is extremely effective, but I wouldn't have necessarily labeled that as executive coaching. I think if I were to do the next phase of that project, that would be more group coaching. So it was more of a leadership development facilitation, but it's a really great tool for bringing people together and enhancing that sense of cohesion and collaboration and mutual understanding.
I like that. So now, I know you kind of talk a little bit about KKM leadership, but can you tell us what it is about and the services the company offers?
So KKM Leadership provides executive leadership coaching. Clearly, we've been talking about that quite a bit, but also human capital consulting services. And how we work is I have a network, a team. So if you go onto my website, you'll see that there are some amazing individuals on my. I'm calling them my team, but I don't employ them. They are 1099s. They're all independent consultants. So it's essentially my network. And so we provide any human capital consulting service that you could possibly want in the space of culture and change. So where we really focus is diversity and inclusion. I have a phenomenal consultant that I work with and partner with. Her name's Tamara Carpenter, and she is brilliant. She's done some really amazing work. And so if we land a contract, excuse me, with an organization that really wants to focus on D&I, I will bring Tamara in, and we will partner on that initiative. I've also had a client who really needed to scale up their startup organization. So I brought in Alison Egberg, who is a senior executive formerly in global organizations in the HR space, but she has a passion for recruiting. So she went in as a consultant and worked with that startup to do recruiting, and she just loves doing that. Another example is Britta Lopnow. So Britta is on the East Coast, and she is a former McKinsey professional, and she did interim HR business partner work for one of my clients. Worked on a COVID handbook, some new policies, helped to deal with some employee relations issues, and also has supported me on multiple career framework projects, which has become a bit of a niche for me. So a lot of these organizations, they're seeing that their people are, obviously they're leaving. There's so many opportunities out there. And they say, hey, we really want to know what's our next step? What's our growth potential? And the organizations are saying, oh my gosh, I don't know. how do we build this out? So I've done this for 3 organizations now, career frameworks, essentially. So expectations, et cetera. So that's just a bit of an example of some of the work that we've been doing for organizations.
And I know that the company you used to work for 14 years, you're still working with them right now. So how did you end up keeping that workflow going even when you're no longer the employee?
Persistence. Persistence. Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was leaving Deloitte, I started to explore working with Deloitte internally, potentially as an executive coach. But then they said, you know what? We just hire external coaches. That's the way that is. I said, okay, fine, great. And that's when, I kind of made my final decision, moving on, going to do KKM. But I stayed connected with the team at Deloitte who was running the executive coaching side of business for the US firm. And so for a year and a half, we stayed in touch. I would follow up. We would have a conversation. They would say, we're not ready. For a year and a half. It took that long.
Wow.
Yeah, but I knew that's where I really wanted to land because I have such a love for Deloitte, and it's just there's a mutual respect there. So I wanted to be able to do the work that I was doing previously within the organization. I wanted to do it in a different way, but with that understanding of Deloitte. 14 years is a long time. You learn a lot about an organization. And so now I am one of their vendors, essentially. So KKM Leadership is a vendor of Deloitte. And I am helping them with executive coaching, working on a really special initiative called Next Gen Experience. That's for partners that are, up and coming. But I also have taken on individual one-on-one coaching clients with them as well. So it's great. It's just everything comes full circle.
Persistent. You didn't give up.
No, never. You can't. No, it's really important to if you want something, you have to keep going at it. And not that, no doesn't always mean no. Sometimes it does, but it does. I knew it didn't mean no. So I just kept going. And
but it was a great decision because at the end, like you said, it works. So giving up, it's not always the best way. Sometimes we need to push a little bit more and more and more and more until we get it. And be patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were asking about, well, just how I operate and how I think. And I said, it's really important if there's a problem that's really big and really difficult to solve, you need to dig in really deep. Because I've seen in my career a lot of people, if the problem is too difficult to solve, They just say, no, I'm not going to go there. Too difficult. I've tried it. Yeah, it didn't work. And that person tried it. It didn't work. So yeah, but we need to solve for this. How there's a solution to every problem. It may not be the solution
That's
you
true.
expected. It may not be the approach you expected to take. It may not be the final outcome that you anticipated, but you've still solved for the problem. And there's
Yes.
negotiation in there, there's bargaining in there, there's the compromise. There's so much involved, but it's hard work. It's always worth it.
I agree. Even when you're looking at scientists, you will find one of them died trying to solve a problem, didn't solve it, but the next one to pick it up and continue it anyway, and still didn't solve it and die. So why do you think they keep doing that? So that's the reason why they keep wanting to know the answer behind it, keep fighting to find the answer to that. So yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes especially as women, because we carry so many different hats. Sometimes we feel like, okay, this is too much. I'm not gonna deal with it. Let's move forward. Let's go the other route. But it's not. I don't think it's the best solution, like you said. I think if we stay focused enough and we be persistent and then be like you actually, we'll get the results that we need. I think that with you it turns out to be a good result at the end of the day, so you took it a shot and you win, so it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, and I love that analogy about the scientists. They dedicate their lives to it. And I feel as though I've dedicated my
Yes.
life to this work. And I love it. Not every day is perfect, but I love what I do. I
No.
love helping my clients. Love helping them to solve their problems and see things in a different way, and see change in their organization. I absolutely love it. And you're right. I mean, as women, we do have to wear so many different hats, and it's easier to just say, forget it. But if you feel passionate about it and it's always kind of in the back of your mind, you need to keep pursuing it.
Yes, keep going for it. But as a leader yourself, do you find there's more women in leadership, or I mean, like more women? I know there's more men in leadership, but I mean, like, do you work with more women in leadership, or do you have more men clients?
That's a really good question. So I have, hmm, I would say it's a mix, but in the past. But now that I'm kind of connected with Deloitte, they're really trying to empower. Well, I mean, they've been doing this for many years, but they're really trying to empower their female leaders. And so I do have more female clients right now than male. So, but in the
Do you
past, it
find
was kind of more male. Go ahead.
okay? Do you find it more difficult to help women or men to guide them?
Equally. It honestly, it just I don't think I could give an answer to that, because if someone wants to be coached and they want to learn and grow, it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter any of that. If you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to become a better leader, and you're coachable, then it's equal ground as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, I've had women clients that are really stubborn and push back, and you really need to dive in. And then I've had male clients that are really open and say, okay, I'll take that feedback. I get it. I hear you. So, and then I've had the other way around. It really depends on the person's experience, where they've come from, what their situation is. Everyone's unique.
Exactly, you are right. So, as a leader yourself with a team of more than five, what are the challenges you face and how did you overcome them?
I mean, even in the past, when I've led teams within an organization, I think it's really just making sure that you're staying connected to people, that you're supporting them, that you're empowering them, that you're being transparent, you're providing them with all the right feedback, that you're guiding them in the right direction, but not telling them what to do. Really giving them that feeling of autonomy and challenge. I remember working with someone, and she was an up and coming manager back in the day. And she would always include me on calls. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, at some point, I need to not be there. So, and she said, but I'm nervous. Like, what if I don't know the answer? I said, you don't need to know the answer to every question. But how about we do this? How about we get on a call? You lead the call with the client, and I'm there as support. And I said, if you need support, all you have to do is say, and Kathy, what do you think? That's it. And I said, that will be my cue to step in. And so she led the whole call, encountered a little roadblock, said, Kathy, what do you think? She used our magic words. And I, stepped in, said whatever it is that I needed to say to keep the conversation going, and then handed it back to her. She closed it off, and then we ended the call. And I said, well, how did that go? She said, oh my gosh, like I feel so great. I said, so do you feel you can go on the next call without me? She said, yes, perfect, done. So I think it's really just empowering your team and making sure that you're guiding them and leading them and mentoring them, but not telling them what to do. And essentially you're coaching them. I guess that's what I'm saying. You're really coaching your team. And I would say that's exactly the same philosophy I have for when I was a leader in an organization, as well as a leader of KKM, because I am always having conversations with my team, helping them because they all have their own businesses as well. They're, working for me, working for themselves. So I'm helping them, I'm coaching them in how to, manage multiple clients, how to manage difficult clients, whether they're my client or their own client. And it's really, it's the same, it's really the same philosophy, to be perfectly honest. It's just listening, asking them questions, helping them work through scenarios, and really just giving them a boost of confidence.
Yes. And I think that's all really your team will need, because at the end of the day, if you keep babysitting, like you said before, she keeps adding you to all of her calls. At the end of the day, you will never have the time to do anything else because you're babysitting one staff member instead of doing things that you need to do as a leader yourself. So I like what you did. I think it was the best way around it to actually fix it. And I feel like that's exactly what you do when you are helping your clients as well.
Yeah, it's a great observation. It's exactly right. And I remember having a client, and I was working with the CEO, and I kept saying, my contract is ending. Our engagement is going to be ending in a couple of weeks. So, are you sure you don't want to stay? And I said, look, you need to do this without me. And so it was coming up with a game plan, and eventually you just have to cut the ties too, because you can't have them rely on you. They need to learn how to do certain things themselves. So very similar
Yes.
scenario with even CEOs.
So with everything that happened in the past few years, COVID, a lot of mercy, let's not talk about that. What are the biggest challenges leaders are facing today?
I would say implications of COVID. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
challenges. I would say, yeah. And I had to learn some big lessons and take a step back when it came to COVID, because we're not directly talking about COVID, but what happened because of COVID was everyone started to work remotely in the corporate
True.
world. And the truth is, I had been working remotely for 12 years. So prior to COVID.
Cool.
So yeah, I was traveling, I was going to different offices, but I was working on my computer in my home office for 12 years. And so when COVID hit and everyone was shipped home to work, I just said, okay, well, this is great. No change for me. But of course, that was not that was not the right mindset. So I really needed to quickly be more empathetic and walk in other people's shoes. And I switched it around and I started working with my clients to say, okay, what challenges are you facing? Because remote work is difficult. So no matter who you
Yes.
are, what this, some people have kids at home, running around. I have 3 dogs, they're barking all the time. And not only that, people feel isolated, unhappy, unhealthy. stressed, disconnected from work. And so I would say leaders are absolutely struggling with engaging their employees. So, maybe they're still employed, but are they really actively engaged? And that's something I focus on quite a bit, is kind of engagement, culture. How can leaders manage and lead remotely? Or now that we're going back into the offices, how can we manage through this hybrid scenario? What techniques can you employ as a leader to really engage with your teams? And some leaders are like, I'm just all about business. Well, you know what? Maybe some chit chat is okay, because that's what you do. Water cooler talk, virtual water cooler talk. So it's just, how do you engage with people, and how do you share your own authenticity? And that sounds a bit woo-wooey, but it really is so critical. It's, how do you bring yourself to work in this virtual environment? How, as a leader, are you vulnerable? How are you sharing your own story? How are you, letting people know you're struggling too? Because they are. I always
Yes.
used to say at Deloitte, partners are people too. Just because you're a senior executive in an large successful organization, you're still a person. You still have emotions. You still have challenges. You're still, dealing with things personally and professionally. You may not even like your own boss, but you're a senior leader in an organization, and you have to show up as like this incredibly put together person. Guess what? You're a person. You're a human being. So, that authenticity and making sure that you feel comfortable sharing some of that with others, I think that's been a challenge for leaders as well. And really just retention. So kind of along the side of engagement is like, how do we retain people in this environment where everyone's just kind of jumping around from one organization to another? How do we ensure that our company culture is really solid? What are our core values? Do they resonate? Is that important? Are the core values that we have, are they the right ones? Do we need to refresh them? So I've actually done that for 3 different clients. I've helped them to refresh their core values and then set up an expectations framework and a launch plan in alignment with those core values. And you can really pull that through the entire employee life cycle. You have it on your website, you talk about it, you live it, you breathe it, you recruit people who are aligned with those core values. You assess people, you promote people based on all of that, and that really helps to strengthen the company culture to the point where people they understand it and they feel part of something bigger than themselves. So that's been a challenge I've seen in organizations and with leaders as well.
Refresh your core value, huh? Interesting. But
It
but
is.
with I feel like with COVID hit, it's you start working from home, and people were just getting to get really the working from home environments kind of to make it work, and then just like that, uh, companies are saying, "Hey, you need to come back to the office." So do you find that, like, wait a minute, I'm just starting to get comfortable here. Now I gotta go back all over again and start all over again. How do you think that leaders feel about it, since you work with so many of them? It's like making that switch like that and making another switch just like that again.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I've seen different reactions to that. So some leaders say, you know what? If you want to stay remote, you have the choice. And so they're being really flexible, and they're seeing the writing on the wall, because I know there are so many individuals that are out there working that say, I do not want a job that is not remote. I want a remote job. That's it. So if leaders do not see that, they're missing out on a really big pool of talent. So I have seen some leaders just immediately say, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's just try to do a hybrid arrangement, because you can't force people to go into an office unless their job requires it, really. I mean, there are certain jobs that you need to be in the office, and that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, it's really difficult. And then I have other senior leaders who are saying, we have these offices, everyone needs to go in. And that's, I think, it's challenging. It's challenging. We're seeing that out there with a lot of senior leaders like Elon Musk with Tesla. He's saying, everyone back in the office, your job, you need to be in the office. That's it. And then there's other organizations like Facebook that says we're remote first. So what does that tell you? There's a whole spectrum of leaders out there that are responding differently to this scenario. And I'd have to ask them personally, how do you feel about it? Because I would say what I'm seeing is a lot of leaders do not want to go back into the office. It's working for them. They want to have the choice. Go into the office if you want, or if you need to, because it's an important meeting, bring the team together for a week, whatever, works for your organization. But then everyone else stays remote. So I would say that the reactions to this is varied, but I will tell you that based on the organizations I've worked with that have gone through all of this, people are incredibly stressed. They're very stressed out about, okay, I've figured out how to work from home. This is working for me. And now I need to go back in the office. Now I'm stressed about that. And leaders
Exactly.
they need to listen to that because it's a real challenge.
Yes, especially when you look at women that have children, they just finally make the arrangement to be able to work from home comfortably and then be able to still have the kids or have the kids with someone or something like that. And now they have all this arrangement. Now they got to go back and change it all over again, which sometimes they end up costing them more money if they need daycare, if they need more wake up early to drop the kids. And then, you know, I don't know. For me, I felt like organization corporations should look at that, especially for women. I think that we need the support there when it's come to our kids, because what you want us to do with them, because they are the future leaders of the world.
Agreed. And I think some organizations have done a really good job. They've surveyed their people. They've, asked them how you're feeling about this. What are you hoping to achieve, in the next few months in terms of working from home versus going to the office. And they've been really open about it. And other organizations, I say, don't recognize all of those concerns that you just listed. But it's not easy. It's not easy to find the right childcare. It's not easy to find the right working space. People before COVID, they didn't purchase homes thinking that they were going to be working in a home office. And they're like, I
Yeah.
don't have a home office. So what am I supposed to do? And I do know a lot of people that redid their homes or found a different place to rent that had a space for them. That's their home office. Or they went and rented, other consultants that I'm aware of, they've gone and rented co-working spaces. So that, if they have older children, that, the kids are at home still because COVID, whatever happened with their older, kind of almost adult children, but they're still at home. And the home is not large. It's not set up for everyone to be there, 4 people in a home, working and, taking classes. And it's a nightmare. Even the
Yes.
bandwidth for your internet. It just doesn't always work. So people have had to make all these adjustments, and it does cost them more money. And to say, okay,
Yes.
we need to pivot again. You're all coming into the office. Like I can just imagine how many women are just stressing, thinking about it, like so worried. Am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen? How am I going to find an additional, daycare that'll take them, or a nanny to come in, or a babysitter, whatever it is. It's really stressful.
Yes, it is. And I hope that in near future, organizations will take it a little bit more serious. And even then, I felt like they should have reimbursed people for doing all these things, even like getting a desk and then getting all these things set up at home. Those things should have been reimbursed to them because they doing it for the work, for your work, which they're getting done for you. So I think making them feel a bit more appreciated will be a lot better. But again,
Yeah.
hey, what can we say?
Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, my clients have been amazing in this space. They have, provided stipends and, as part of just their everyday
Oh,
benefits, they're offering work from home allowances to pay for Wi-Fi and all that kind of thing. And I had a client and they were incredible. Like once COVID hit, they were like, okay, take all the stand-up desks you want, and everyone was loading them into the back of their cars. and so they had what they
Oh,
needed. It was great. It was really, I've seen some really heartwarming efforts on the part of organizations and their leaders to do what they can do to help their people and support them and make them feel comfortable. But then now that we're in the, I'm hoping the tail end of COVID, it's like, well, now what? So it's just making sure that you're listening to your people and realizing it wasn't just, okay, COVID's over, now we're going to go back to normal. It's a new normal or the next normal or whatever we want to call it. You need to listen to your people.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that. But one thing, talking to you, you encourage diversity in the workplace. May I ask why?
Sorry, I missed your question.
You encourage diversity in the workplace. May I ask why?
It's essential. No two people are the same. No two people are the same. And there is such a range of human beings and their unique needs, whether you can see it or not. And I have my own experiences with an invisible illness, and just really living through that in my career and being a woman, the challenges that people face, whether you see it or not, it impacts them every single day of their life. And we have come so far. Honestly, we've come far, but we haven't come far enough. And for people, we don't even ask the right questions. And leaders, I've seen some amazing inclusive leaders, and I've seen some not so amazing inclusive leaders. But it is so critical for us to just think about things differently, put ourselves in other people's shoes. We cannot possibly understand how anyone is feeling or what they've been experiencing in their lives. We just can't. And so, how do we work with that? How do we create a culture, an environment that enables people to feel as though they can bring their true, authentic selves to work? How do we make sure that they're not feeling isolated? How do we make sure that they feel supported? Because like you said, people are doing this work for you. So what are we doing? What are we as organizations doing for our people to help them and facilitate creating that environment, a safe space? And I've seen my clients do some pretty incredible things, and they have a long way to go. As I was saying, a lot of organizations do, but they're aware. They're aware. Even something simple like being on a Zoom call and saying, okay, there's some people that don't feel comfortable speaking up because we're all blah, 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 chatting and chatting and chatting, and that's just not their personality, or they don't feel comfortable, whatever, or they're the most junior person on the call, they don't feel that they can speak up. There's so many variables in that and so many dynamics that really impede people's ability to thrive. And so the more we're aware and the more we can employ certain techniques to make people feel more included and empower them, the better. So for example, on a Zoom call, a whole bunch of different people, different personalities, different working styles. And you can implement something as simple as, okay, no one is going to just speak. You're going to raise your hand on the Zoom. You know how you can raise your hand on the Zoom or whatever
Right.
Teams, whatever it is. Raise your hand and you will be that's how we're going to do it, so that it's a fair environment. So if you raise your hand, we'll call on you. And it's not just the person who speaks the loudest and the fastest and the most often. So even employing something as simple as that really, really does help. And that's just one teeny tiny little thing that people can do. But yeah, it's absolutely critical.
I like the fact that you take that very seriously, especially as a leader. And I think that's something a lot of leaders, even people, some of them that I talked to and I spoke with before, you don't see that on them. You see they act a little bit different around it, and it's not that the specialty. And I think having leader like you helping leaders understand how to actually implement that into the work and the organization will help a lot, because that's something we need to make it better, a lot better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. And it's just looking at your entire life cycle of your organization. What words are you using on your website? Are you unintentionally or subconsciously, I guess, discouraging? I was trying to think of the right word, but discouraging certain candidates from applying. Are you using language that is more male? There's words and language that tends to be more male in particular. So, how are you writing your job postings? Are you using language that maybe will inhibit a woman from applying because you're like, well, that doesn't resonate with me. So I'm not, overly assertive, but I'm confident. So are you using the word assertive or using the word confident or whatever there's language that organizations need to be aware of. So it's just that's, at the beginning of the life cycle, what language are you using on your website? What language are you using on your postings? Where are you posting your jobs? Are you encouraging diverse candidates? So it even just starts there. And then you look at your entire life cycle. Who are you promoting? How are you promoting? What's your promotion criteria? Is it, well, you need to be in the office, because that is a perception now. It's like, well, I have to be in the office to be promoted. And that's happening. And that's really
Wow.
concerning. Yeah. Yeah. So what does that mean? What does that mean for people that have difficulty getting into an office because they have either a physical or a mental disability that makes it really difficult for them? They're still doing their job amazingly, but it's just, I can't get into the office for whatever reason. Or I've got kids at home and it just doesn't work. My nanny's not available. Like there's so many factors involved in people's decisions and the way that they work. So just looking at that entire life cycle and considering, okay, as a leader, what am I doing or not doing to encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging in my organization? So it really just starts with a conversation. And it doesn't have to be this big thing, it can just be little
Yeah.
things along the way to get started. And I think a lot of leaders and organizations feel this like sense of just overwhelm when they think like, what am I going to do? And so they just don't do anything because they don't know what to do. I mean, that happens with a lot of things. It's like going back to the original conversation we had. If the problem is too big or too hard, then you just, okay, I'm not going to do it. But
Yeah. Forget
we can
about it.
definitely, yeah, exactly. And it really just takes a little bit to get it started.
Yeah, a great way of looking at that. But let's say that an organization needs your help in that with diversity. Is that something that you can help with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it all starts with the culture of the organization. Like, let's take a whole look at everything. What is your promotion process? What's your performance management process? What are your values? What does your website say? What are your posting? We just do a whole analysis of kind of where are you today? What are you doing well? And pointing those things out too, because they may not realize like what they're doing really, really well, or they may realize because, they've gotten great feedback. But I think it's celebrating those successes and saying, you're doing this incredibly well. Like, here are some gaps, here are some opportunities. Let's come up with a strategy to move the needle on these areas. And so,
Okay.
absolutely, we can help with that. And Tamara Carpenter, who I mentioned earlier on, is my DE&I specialist, and the work that she's been doing with some senior leaders just around their cultural awareness and what they value has been pretty eye-opening for those business leaders. And so, starting there, and that's it. That's kind of the group coaching around what are your values, how do you like to work, what are your beliefs, and who are you. That's really
Yes.
interesting to do with a like, what are your cultural values as a person and as a professional, and kind of pulling that all together and having an executive leadership team do that as a group. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing that you have a team that can focus on different things. So, what are your main future plans for KKM Leadership?
Good question. I I really want to be able to just enjoy the summer. So I'm kind of taking a little step back just for the next month and a half, which is short term, but I need a break. I've been working really, really hard. I want to, I definitely want to get the word out there about the work that we're doing and help more organizations, because it doesn't take, as I've mentioned, it doesn't take a lot of work. It's just little baby steps along the way. And so I want to start to get the message out about that. And I want to be able to help as many organizations and as many leaders as I can to feel really inspired and confident and capable and positioned for success when it comes to their human capital initiatives.
I'm sure you're gonna accomplish just that, Kathy, because I have no doubt. Because you didn't give up the first time. I don't think you're going to give up right now.
No way, it's impossible.
Absolutely, Mission Impossible. Kathy, she doesn't give up, so don't even try it.
Ask my husband.
So, do you have any advice to young female leaders and executives?
Know your own value. Know what you're worth. Um, get to know yourself and really bring your true self to work, and to your life. And it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to, have a bad day. But I would absolutely say just don't give up. Find someone to support you, find a sponsor, find someone in the organization that really believes in you, maybe more than you believe in yourself. And just keep write down what you want, write down your dreams, write down your goals, and find people that will help you to get from point A to point B. And whether that's an executive coach, whether that's someone within your organization, whether it's a friend of yours that you really admire, have a support network, because it's really important to know that you're not alone, because you're not.
Yeah, well said. Not alone. That's something we
Mm-hmm.
like to. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know. I know what you mean by that.
Right, yeah. I mean, look, and know your own value, know what you're worth, because I find as women leaders, we question, and there's so much data out there about, men going for promotion opportunities when they feel that they're maybe only 50% capable, whereas a woman will only go for it if they feel like they're 80% capable. I don't know the exact numbers, but there's a significant differential there where men just go for it. They're like, I know I can do this job, but women, we hold ourselves back. Don't hold yourself back.
Right.
Go for it. Just go for it, and know your own value. Know what you're worth, and don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. And obviously, there's a lot of nuances in there. But as a consultant, I've had people say to me many times, like, don't undervalue yourself. And that's
I'm not going.
as a female leader, we need to be very cognizant of that.
Yes. And I am not going to add anything in that, because I think it was perfectly said by you. And then I think, as the professional, as the expert in that, people should listen to it, actually.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Kathy, for being here with us today. I appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge. Is there anything else you'd like to share with you you'd like to share with us before I let you go?
No, I mean, I think we've had a really great conversation. I would say, if there's any female leaders out there that are, kind of in a pivotal moment in their careers, really, really reach out to someone that can support you. And for any leader that is listening to this, for whether male, female, whatever, just baby steps are okay. It's okay to reach out for help, because I feel as though a lot of senior leaders, they think they can do it on their own, or, but it's okay. It's okay to bring in someone, have that conversation, identify where the gaps are in your organization, and get that support, because ultimately it's about ensuring that you have the right culture and the right environment for people to feel that they can do their best work and bring their best selves to work, including the senior leaders.
Absolutely. And you know what? They can make everything a lot easier for them. They can just reach out to you.
There
Everything
you go.
accomplished.
We've solved all of the world's problems.
Yeah, we solve everything right there. Just reach out to Kathy and get it over with. That's it. Oh, thank you, Kathy, for this opportunity to have the conversation with you. And then I look forward to keep learning more about you and your work, because I know that you are doing amazing work, and I know where you are heading is no one can stop you, because you are that unstoppable woman. It's like, when they said Wonder Woman. So I don't even want to use wonder. I want to use unstoppable woman. That's the bigger thing.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. No, this has been a pleasure, and we should absolutely stay in touch, and love to give an update in a few months and see where KKM is.
What a great conversation with Kathy. I love talking to other female founders. It is just amazing to listen to their stories and how they get started, and how they are helping other women and also anyone else in this world. Talking with Kathy make me think, whether you are an executive or a business owner, leadership will help you grow your team and your business. Sometimes we might need a little help to be the best leader we can be. And don't be afraid to do so. Don't be afraid to reach for help, because someone like Kathy can help you along the way. Thank you, Kathy, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Kathy. And to learn more about Kathy and KKM Leadership, visit www.kkmleadership.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app, or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.